Alright, so we have our kind of basic layout set up. Now I want to do a little bit of setup with our file structure. Now, when you get into developing dynamic websites, you're going to probably come up with your own way to do this. This is my way to do it. So if you've watched other people's tutorials, you might see a file structure set up a little different than mine, or very similar, who knows. So what I like to do is I want to kind of organize our page, because already you can see we're getting some code in here, so it goes, farther than our view. Now, you really can't avoid that, but we can kind of trim things up. So one thing I like to do is I like to create a file to hold all the links to our CSS and to hold all of our JavaScript. And I put those files into a folder I call config. So let's right click on our project name here and do new folder, and we'll call this config. And now in this folder I want to go over here and right click and do new file, and we're going to do css.php. And what we're going to do is take all of our CSS related code and toss it in there. So I'm going to take all of this from line 9 to 19, cut that out, hop over here and paste it. Save that, and we also need this style tag here. So we're going to do from 19 to 43, cut that out, and paste that down here. And we're going to take most of this out here and add it to our jQuery theme later on. But we will keep the style tag here to put anything in here that we need to override. It also allows us to use PHP to create some dynamic CSS. So we'll go ahead and save that. And now what we need to do is make sure that we include this file in here. So we're going to get into some PHP. And anytime we need to do PHP, we need to make a set of PHP tags. And again, if you're not familiar with PHP, check out our videos on PHP to get a little better understanding of how PHP works. So these are the PHP tags. So anything in between these tags needs to be PHP. And we can put PHP tags anywhere we want on the document. And right now what we need to do is we need to run a simple function called the include function. And the way to write a function, or the syntax for it, is the function name and then a set of parentheses. So we do include, then our parentheses, and then anytime we write a statement in PHP, we need to close it with a semicolon. So we tell it this is the end of that include function. Now we're still getting an error on the left there. You can see that X next to the line number. That's because we haven't finished the function. We need to put a parameter in here. And the include function needs one parameter. It needs to know what we're including. So in a set of single quotes, we need to put in the path to our CSS file that we just created. So we need to do config/css.php. We'll go ahead and save that. And what include does is it basically takes everything from this CSS file and plops it right here. So it's really no different than us having typed it all out here like we had it before. It just cleans up our document a little bit better. Plus, if we need to create more than just this index page, it allows us to simply include this, and then we can edit it here in the CSS file rather than having to edit it on every single page we create. Now, when I'm doing lines of PHP that are really just one line, I tend to condense everything down to one line. And that's up to you, how you want to format your document. But I'm going to take this and I'm going to bump it up here. And then I'm going to take this closing tag and put it at the end here. So really save some space. So just to show that it works, we'll pop back over here and refresh the page, and there it is. All of our CSS is still intact. Now, if we would have done something wrong, like maybe accidentally named this wrong, say CSSC or something, it's going to look for a file that doesn't exist. So if we go back to our page, we're at the very least not going to see our CSS, so all of our styling is going to be gone. And depending on how XAMPP set up your error handling, you might see a PHP error as well. So refresh, and there you go. All of our style is gone because that file wasn't loaded, and we get a warning that says the include CSS c.php, couldn't find it, didn't exist. So let's go back in here and correct that. Now we want to do the same thing with our JavaScript. So we'll come over here to the config folder, right click on it, do new, file, and we're just going to call this js.php for JavaScript. So let's pop back over here to index, and let's take this opportunity to show a neat feature of Aptana. Now in Dreamweaver we could kind of do what I'm about to show you, where we can do a side-by-side code view, but it was very limited. What you can actually do here is I can take this JS here and drag it over here and set it to the side. So now we can see both files side by side. In Dreamweaver you can only do that with included files, but in here we can do it with whatever we want. We can drag any file over here, and in fact you can really set this up however you want. You could have 4 pages open at the same time if you wanted to. It's pretty great. So let's go ahead and take this out here. So Control X to cut it out. Go ahead and paste it in here. Save that. And now we need to do an include. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this line here. Paste it below, Control V, and change CSS to JS. And then we can kind of trim this up. Save that. So now we have these linked. Look, you can see our whole page here. I'm going to trim this up a little bit too. And really just makes things cleaner. And we're going to do this a lot when we start templating out the site. So go ahead and save this. And I'm just going to go ahead and actually move this over here to CSS file. And there you have it. Now I want to add one more file. I'm going to add what I call the setup file. And we're going to do this before the page, anything on the page is loaded. This is going to hold, at the very least, a link to our MySQL connection or our database connection, which we'll set up later. But for right now, let's just go ahead and we'll do another PHP include. And config/setup.php. And this would be familiar to you if you did work on our previous series. So go ahead and save that. Now we're going to get an error if we try to run this because we haven't created this yet. So right click on config folder, new, file, and setup.php. And I'm going to go ahead and toss this over here too. Now if you're working on multiple monitors, which I am, however you can only see the one, what you can actually do is you can drag these outside of the editor and pull them up on a totally different monitor. That's also something else Dreamweaver couldn't do, and that's really helpful. So we'll go in here and let's go ahead and just make some PHP tags.